Welcome back to Learn English with the News. I'm your host, Adam, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Sarah. How are you today, Sarah?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much, Adam. I'm really happy to be here for this new episode. We've got a great topic lined up.
We really do. Today, we're exploring why international news is, I think, one of the absolute best ways to really push your English skills forward. And for our listeners, just a quick reminder. If English isn't your native language, you can always turn on the YouTube subtitles to see a real-time translation while you listen.
Absolutely. And today, we're not just talking theory. We are diving into a specific, pretty wild story that stunned a lot of people. I'm talking about the recent statements from the White House suggesting that using the U.S. military to seize Greenland is, and I'm quoting here, always an option.
It sounds like something out of a movie, doesn't it? But this isn't hypothetical at all.
Not at all. I mean, these comments have caused actual international reactions, real diplomatic tension. So for all our English learners out there, we're not just going to follow the story. We're going to dive deep into the specific vocabulary and expressions that diplomats, journalists, and politicians use in situations exactly like this.
Right. So let's set the scene. According to multiple reports, this wasn't just an off-the-cuff remark. The White House actually confirmed that President Trump and his advisors were seriously discussing several options to acquire Greenland, and that included the possible use of the U.S. military.
And that's where the vocabulary gets so interesting. Phrases like military option and national security priority, they are so striking because they're part of this very formal, very serious political language.
They carry a lot of weight.
Exactly. Hearing them in a real news context helps learners understand just how heavy and strategic that kind of vocabulary is. It's not something you just throw around.
And of course, the reaction from Europe was immediate. European leaders just condemned the suggestion. You had countries like France, Germany, Italy, Spain, the UK, basically everyone publicly coming out and reaffirming that, Greenland belongs to its people, and they support Denmark's sovereignty over it.
Oh yeah, I remember Italy's prime minister was especially clear. He explicitly ruled out any U.S. military move. He basically said it would harm NATO and wouldn't serve anyone's interests. A very strong rebuke.
And that polarity you see there, national security on one side versus territorial integrity on the other, that's a central theme in international relations. It's a classic conflict.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So words like sovereignty, territorial integrity, diplomatic pushback, alliance obligations, these are the terms you'll hear all the time in high-level English political reporting. They're essential.
But then you have a completely different perspective from Greenland itself. Across Greenland, officials and unions, they just strongly rejected this whole idea of being sold or annexed.
Right, a much more personal reaction.
Exactly. One union leader just said it plainly. Greenland is not for sale and will not be annexed. Period.
And that represents a very different register of language, doesn't it? It's much more emotional, direct, community-centered. It's where you hear terms like local communities, self-governance, public sentiment, and independence. That's the vocabulary of the people living there.
Totally. So then, in response to all this controversy, you had advisors from the U.S. meeting with envoys from Denmark and Greenland to, clarify the situation.
Ah, yes, the damage control phase. And this shows another layer of diplomatic English, right? You have envoys, foreign ministers. They need to clarify, discuss options, hold diplomatic talks, all phrases used in these official behind-the-scenes negotiations.
And these are exactly the kinds of phrases that English learners need to be able to recognize to understand what's really happening in professional news settings.
It's just so valuable.
It is. This whole episode gives learners this incredible exposure to terms used in these really formal international contexts. You get national security, strategic priorities, military force, sovereignty, diplomacy, all without having to rely on a direct translation. It just builds your listening comprehension and your confidence.
Right, and that's the key. You're not just memorizing a vocabulary list from a textbook. You're learning how it is actually used in real sentences by real sources. Major news outlets like Reuters, Al Jazeera, and in official government statements. That context is crucial for progressing beyond an intermediate level of English.
That's such a good point.
And this situation also ties into these much broader global trends, like the growing competition for influence in the Arctic, the role of NATO, and that constant balance between diplomacy and force.
For sure. For example, you mentioned NATO. The whole concept of NATO's collective defense obligations, the idea that an attack on one ally is an attack on all, that concept is constantly invoked in discussions of European security. So recognizing phrases like collective defense and deterrence helps learners follow international reporting so much more effectively.
And you know what else is important to note? The tone. How the tone changes depending on who is speaking. Officials often use this very measured, very careful language, like "we are considering options." And it's worth touching on the why behind all this. Why Greenland? This brings in a whole other layer of vocabulary related to geography, resources, and strategy.
Right, very non-committal. Exactly, Adam. When you look at a map, you realize Greenland's geopolitical importance. It sits at a critical point in the Arctic Circle. With melting ice caps opening up new shipping lanes, the country's strategic location becomes even more vital. For a global power, having a military or economic outpost there is a massive advantage. So you hear terms like geopolitical significance and strategic foothold being used.
Exactly. Whereas journalists, they might use stronger language like escalation to describe the potential reactions or consequences. They have a different job to do. Beyond location, there's the economic dimension. Greenland is believed to have vast, untapped natural resources. We're talking about rare earth minerals, which are crucial for modern technology, as well as potential oil and gas reserves. So, for English learners, this introduces a whole new set of vocabulary around untapped reserves, resource exploration, and economic potential.
Yes, and that's part of advanced listening comprehension, isn't it? Noticing those subtleties, what is said, how it is said, and why it matters in that specific context. It's reading between the lines. And we can't ignore the climate change angle, which is a huge part of any discussion about the Arctic. As the ice melts, not only do shipping lanes open up, but it also creates tension around environmental protection versus economic opportunity. This introduces vocabulary like climate change, ice melt, environmental impact, and sustainable development. These are terms that appear constantly in the news today, far beyond this one story.
So, to conclude, using real international news like this as a learning support helps learners do a few key things. First, you get to understand authentic language used by professionals.
Second, you learn to recognize strategic vocabulary in context, not just in a list.
And finally, you build real confidence in your real-world English comprehension, which is the ultimate goal.
We really encourage you to listen to this episode again. Maybe focus on the specific vocabulary we mentioned and try to follow similar international news topics in English every day. It makes a huge difference.
It really does. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you in the next episode of Learn English with the News.